G'day, welcome to Realms of Power. My name's Dr. Tony Rudd and I'm the host of this show. The purpose of Realms of Power is to turn your true aligned power on, or turn your tap on, as we like to say. We broke this down into 12 different realms in our very first episode, and we've had a whole lot of guests come on the show to help with their specific area that might help you turn your power on. Now, this is designed for people that might be stuck somewhere, down on their power, low on energy, or just want to live their most unbelievable, magnificent life. So my background is a chiropractor for 25 years, helping people turn their power on through alignment and optimizing of their nervous system. I've seen such phenomenal change. I've also been a life coach in the personal development field for almost 20 years, helping people physically, chemically, emotionally, spiritually, all the different realms. And it's been an honor to be able to help so many people. That's why we've done this podcast. Now, if you'd like to find out more, I have a personal website on www.tonyrudd.com.au, and we have a Facebook page for Realms of Power to access all the episodes. They're available on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all of the different platforms as well. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have an awesome day. See ya. G'day, welcome to Realms of Power. My name's Dr. Tony Rudd, and today I've got an excellent guest. She'll be so funny. Laura MacMahon, welcome to our show.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Such an honor for you to be here. And I know, Laura, you've just been on an amazing 5-day workshop for women, empowering women, and you've worked with men and women as a coach. What was it like to stand in your power and help those women on that journey this weekend?
Look, this weekend, Tony, was actually phenomenal. It was actually really life-changing for myself and many of the women that were there, crew as well as participants. I really looked at my own style of leadership and what it is for me to turn my power on, inspired by yourself as well as other people in our community, and just worked at how do I get the most alignment, synchronicity, and expansion out of myself and the crew around me. And collectively, we were able to provide this environment for the participants to actually be really inspired by what they saw. And so, by the end of the workshop, we actually had participants coming up, standing there saying, we want what you've got.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I've known you for a number of years now, and I've watched your journey to go from just coming into that personal growth space and just stepping into the powerful leader you are. Can you take us back on a bit of your backstory of how you sort of found yourself getting into the field of personal growth?
Yeah, look, it's actually a funny story. A mutual friend of ours approached myself and my husband way back when in 2009, first introduced us to the concept of going on the workshop. We'd not long had children. Things were pretty hectic in the, young family household. And we sort of went, no, that's not for us. That's not where we're at right now. Fast forward a good 6 years on from that, and things have gone pretty pear-shaped. I had been experiencing a lot of anxiety, panic attacks, all sorts of depression, and I just really felt lost. I was just, really, really lost, to the point where my husband and I actually took a little separation. And in that separation, he then decided he would take up the suggestion to go and do a workshop, and he went and did that. And I saw him come back a changed man. Like it was the foundation of him starting to change. When he stood in front of me, I looked at him and I went, something's different. I feel like, there's something there for me. And so 6 months later, I enrolled as well. And I was a very, very different woman at that time. I was still very crippled with anxiety. I remember right at the start of the workshop, there's a couple of processes that happen. And there's one that has a quite a big drum sound. And it's a big ritual drum. So you can imagine it's quite boom, boom, and it sort of reverberates through the space. I was actually so riddled with panic and anxiety and fear of the unknown that the sound of this drum stopped me in my tracks. I couldn't step through the door. And I remember the facilitator walked up behind me and put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "When you're ready, you'll take a step." And I remember taking this step through this doorway going, and it was like I'd broken through the first barrier to go, okay, the fear got me and I stopped, but I can still step forward. And so, yeah, I stepped through the door and went over a cliff that weekend, basically deep dove into every process. Even if I felt deep fear or anxiety, something in me switched that weekend, and it was to do with the environment that I was in, of course, and the people around me and the collective consciousness that was going on. But I emerged from that workshop a very different woman. And that was the start of my journey into personal growth. And from then, I literally came out of that workshop and on the Sunday night and enrolled in the next one on the Monday. And so, yeah, that's the origin of.
So prior to that workshop, had you done any personal growth really at all?
Oh, look, some of my friends had pulled out the tarot cards and asked me what I was feeling in that moment, but that's about it.
Yeah,
really hadn't done anything.
Nothing to this.
I'd done a little bit of cognitive behavioural therapy, but that's more of a clinical thing.
Yep.
I still believe that has a good foundation in some of my understanding and knowledge, and there's certainly a place for that. And I still use cognitive behavioural therapy, and even just in little moments, I find myself going, "Oh, that's a bit black and white, Laura," So that sort of thing. But other than that, no, I hadn't done anything.
Well, a lot of our listeners would identify with your story in that they haven't necessarily done personal growth, and there is a lot in our community right now of people suffering with anxiety, fear, that you were talking about motherhood and relationship, and that might have even led to a breakdown. And for whatever reason, your husband went to the workshop and you saw that change in him. Tell me about your journey since then in standing into your power and doing these workshops, not as a one-off, but continually immersing yourself in that space.
Yeah, certainly. So, in the environment that I'm working in now, once you've done these 2 foundational workshops, you can actually get an invite to go and what they call crew. And for women, there's 3, possibly 4 opportunities per year to go. And because of the mammoth change that had occurred for me when I did the first workshop, and then doubling down on that by doing the second workshop, I knew that this was not a one and done moment. I knew that in order for true change, it needed to be consistent. And when I got that first invitation to crew, I felt a burn that I knew wasn't going to go away. And I just kept choosing it. Every time I got that invitation, I kept choosing myself, even when it was hectic and it was like the logistics of managing 2 young children and a full-time job and did I have annual leave, all of those things. Actually, everything's possible. That's what I realized every time I chose to crew. So all of the excuses you can come up with not to do it, be it even money. We were very tight. We still had a young family. We were quite tight financially and, spending this money on myself. My mother even judged me for being irresponsible. And yet, I'm not going out to the pub and putting, hundreds of dollars through the pokies or anything like that. I'm spending hundreds of dollars on myself for the betterment of myself as a mother, as a wife, as a woman, and it shows up in all areas. So keeping on choosing that regardless of judgment around me from anyone else or regardless of the logistics that get in the way, I found that over the years, because now I'm actually into my 8th year of doing crewing outside of being a participant, I have just expanded every single year and I've gotten to a new layer and a new part of myself and accessing more of my own personal power in multiple different areas, from leadership through to delivery and my own facilitation.
It's so good. And look, again, for the listeners, there's many personal growth platforms out there where different people are offering this space, and some will resonate with you and some will not. And it's finding that right one for you that gives you that community and support, not just from the workshop itself, but from the people and the connections you create with those sort of environments.
Yeah.
And I think in our world right now,
a lot of people are feeling isolated and alone, and having that community around you is really important. What would you speak about into the community and the power of the community that you've been able to be involved in and create in terms of power?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's actually a number of people on crew who actually do live quite a solitary life, and they are quite isolated. And this tribe and this community, us coming together, has created an opportunity for them for the connection that we actually all need. And even when they leave the workshop, they're still available. The other members of the crew are still available. There's still opportunities for socialisation. Although we do come from all over Australia, there's some that are local, and you can connect with them, and it's made a massive impact on my life as well from a social point of view. But feeling like I belong, that's a massive part. I really did feel like I'd sort of outgrown the older version of myself many years ago, and being around childhood family and friends, they want to hold you to account about who you used to be. Oh, but Laura, you were like this. And it's like, yeah, he's standing in front of me. Can you not see a different version? And some of them are just blind to it. They just can't see it. So you hold space for that. But then on the other side of that, build a community of people that see you for the version that you are now.
So, working particularly with women in the women's workshop arena, I'd love to speak to you about what you've noticed in women as a generalization at the moment. And we're talking from in Australia. Where do you think women are not standing in their power?
Boundaries, massive. There's from young women to older women. Their boundaries is a massive concept. So many women don't know how to say what they want. So many women don't know how to say no. Using myself for an example, in doing all of the different layers that I've delved through from doing crew and then also doing another program, doing coach at the moment, I actually have identified for myself. I actually struggled to say, I want XYZ. And for me, I didn't even realize it came from conditioning from my mum. I wasn't allowed to use the words I want as a child at all. I could say, I would like, please. But in my mind, in like the very rational, literal child mind, I heard, you're not allowed to ask for what you want. And so I lost that voice in me. And as a early 40s woman now, I finally am at that place where I can finally put words to what it is that I want and what it is that I don't want.
Mm.
And so that's a massive area for myself, and it's something that I see very much as a theme throughout the women coming through the workshops.
So that common theme of not having their boundary, do you think that can lead to problems in the community right now, like domestic violence, emotional abuse, all of those big topics comes back to that part of them that is not able to stand in their power and have their boundaries set up?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably also tied to not having community as well. So the topic we just spoke about, if a woman is isolated in the community, doesn't have or isolated at home, doesn't have a community, also doesn't have the ability within themselves to find that boundary to say, hey, no, that's actually not okay. We can't judge that woman. She doesn't know what she doesn't know. So that is definitely a massive issue.
Mm. So in the solution of that, we can't just say, hey, you've just got to get your boundaries. It goes deeper than that. What do you think is the underlying cause a lot of the time in what you've seen? Again, not for everyone, but as a common theme for women. Where is this set up?
A lot of women that I see come through the workshops have actually experienced sexual abuse. And as a young child, whether that be minor interfering from even just a gaze from from an unwanted uncle, or to a much more severe out there in the world sort of experience where they were physically dominated. And a lot of women very easily able to be physically dominated by a man regardless of the size comparison. It's in our biology. And so they have had that personal power stripped away, and they come to this place where they finally have a community of women and clean men around them that they can experience an opportunity to find that moment and stand in the power and reclaim it for themselves.
That's a great solution and healing for those women to be surrounded by that. If we looked at the cause and we looked at maybe the male in this stage, we'll call it that, being a perpetrator, the perpetrator often, I've noticed, picks out certain women, certain styles, ones, like you just said, that don't have that boundary in the first place. If they put that gaze or put that sexual inappropriateness on a woman who has a strong boundary, they're just not going to go there, are they?
No.
So how does that get shifted for our younger generation to sort that out before it even becomes the problem? What do you feel?
Well, it's not necessarily, I feel, the responsibility of the younger generation. It's the responsibility of the parents and the adult community of that younger generation. You know, we have to wake up to it. There's no more sweeping it under the rug anymore. Shine a light on it, put it out there, call out the perpetrators. There is a law of the land that they need to be held accountable to, and then there is healing for the victim that needs to occur.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And as a man myself, having worked with both men and women in the past, it is a topic that is taboo a lot of the time. It's not openly talked about, and it is swept under the rug. Like if you talk about this, and they create these, scary situations that if you ever said or dobbed, you'll be in trouble. And that helps go to the next thing. I say helps. That creates the next thing of shutting people down.
Yeah.
Would you agree that that's another common theme amongst women?
Absolutely. And even sometimes, I'll hear a story where a younger woman did actually find the voice, did go to her parents, and oftentimes the mother or the father haven't been able to reconcile or process that. And so they've even swept it under the rug and made almost like gaslit the child to go, it wasn't as bad as you thought, maybe. And that's insidious, because if the parents can't stand in this is fucked, this should not have happened to my child, without going into like revenge-based retribution in this instance, it's about how can I stand up for my child and show them that I can protect them and hold this person accountable and also be there in their healing as well.
Wow, what a topic on power. So it's about the parents standing in their power. It's about the
Yeah.
child finding that boundary and that voice, and the woman in her later life, if that has happened, would you say it's better to reveal it and uncover it, or just leave it under the carpet?
I'll reveal it 100%. And I actually speak into that very personally, Tony, because I was sexually abused at the age of 12. I did not find my voice to express that to my mother, who was a single mother at the time. And it wasn't until 26 years later, of a 26-year-old secret, that I actually spoke into it. And I now, as a 42-year-old woman, can look back and go, I know the moments that this has impacted my life because I stayed silent. And now I won't stay silent about it. I don't have shame about it. It wasn't my shame to hold.
Mm. Wow, thank you for sharing. That takes a lot of courage to share. And again, another of those big topics that you just brought up is shame. So what would you say about the way women manifest shame?
Manifest shame. That's an interesting way to phrase that. Can you elaborate on the question just a little more?
Yeah, so if I was talking about manifesting, not that they're trying to attract shame into their life, but it's there and it's either hidden or it's recursive, and they loop back into the body position of shame. They hold their body in a way of shame. And so in that, they're self-perpetuating, they're self-fulfilling the environment of shame. And I've seen that so many times. Again, you think, well, is it sexual abuse? Is it emotional abuse? What has led to that? But in a way, they haven't found their voice and stood into their power. So they're repeating the loop and manifesting it. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, so you're correct. It is definitely about their inner voice. And whether that shame comes from a experience, a sexual abuse experience, or even a physical or emotional, or it could even be something as simple as, slut shaming during high school. and they hear these words and they get in their mind, it becomes conditioning. And so they're like, oh, I can't do that because that's shameful. Oh, shame. You hear these words, oh, shame on me. I shouldn't feel this or I shouldn't feel that. Like, it is actually one of the things that I have observed in the younger women in this day and age right now, and especially in their late teens, early 20s, they don't have shame-based conversations around sex. It's fucking liberating. They actually can talk into it really freely. They have all these different avenues that they're open to talking about, whether it actually speaks to them or not, or they actually put words to it. And the older generation could really do with learning a little bit from the younger generation where it's concerned. Some of my favorite women to talk to are in their early 20s right now. So I love talking about sex. It's one of my favorite topics. And I don't want to feel like I'm shackled because of any shameful reason. So, yeah.
That's so liberating to hear women sticking with women and youthful wisdom as well. What a great topic youthful wisdom is, because it's so easy for those women to be judged with an old paradigm. Like you used the word slut shaming, and most people would be shocked at that word, but it's such a beautiful description of what happens to women. And some people go into shutdown and some people will just stand in their power. So we're talking about standing in their power. I think it's such an amazing topic. And having worked with all that women, what have you seen? What have you seen when you've helped women stand in their power in any of those topics we've just covered?
Freedom, like the freedom on their face. Their faces become younger. Their body expression becomes freer. They smile more. They're more in their bodies. They're more natural to talk to. There's no small talk once they've gone over the edge of that and they've actually reclaimed that power within themselves. And they're just a joy to talk to.
Isn't it the way it should be?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not that we want to should on anything, but yeah, I'd love it to be that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you're part of creating a movement and a vision, whether that's in the workshops you've been in, or whether that's one-on-one conversation with someone at your workspace, or, a child at the soccer, day that you're on, and you're able to have those conversations. Right thing at the right time, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's amazing, Laura. So, wow, I'm blown away by the depth of conversation you can go to. Now, I want to bring up a different topic, and it's about having fun and having fun with women. Can you speak into how women these days, balancing that having fun with the roles that they've got to do in family, in parenting, putting the kid first, the busyness, and they don't put their own fun first a lot of the time. Can you speak into that?
Yeah, for me, I find now that I've reclaimed so much of my personal power and I'm still investigating it and seeking out these different parts of my identity, whatever I'm doing out there in the world, whether it be work, being a soccer mum, being a wife, being in the community, doing anything, I ask myself, how can I put my little slant on this? How can it be Laura's little flavour here? And how do I get to express myself? And I get a lot of joy out of all the different parts of my personality coming out in appropriate places and sometimes not appropriate places because, let's face it, your girl's not always appropriate. And I think that's all right.
That's authentic. That's a different word.
She used that word at me. Yeah, no, definitely. It is, and it truly is. If they've used the word too much out there in the world about being your authentic self, but that is essentially what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Finding those places, and no matter what I'm doing, I get joy out of being my own self, putting my own flavour into it. And for me, that's fun. I even find I definitely find these workshops that we do, some of the topics, as you can see in here, they're quite heavy. And people are like, oh, doesn't it weigh you down? And doesn't it, do you I love the catch cry, I'm an empath. I couldn't do that. I'd take all of their stuff on. And I actually realize now there is a difference between empathy and sympathy. And so the times in my life when I've been listening to someone's story and I feel taken by it and taken out by it, I'm actually in sympathy with them. That's not empathy. Because if I'm in empathy with someone, I can relate to them and their story can pass through me, but it doesn't grip me. So when I'm in process on a workshop, I can have that moment the person's story can move through me. And then we're actually, because we go from powerless to powerful, what's powerful? It's joy. We're on the other side of the powerlessness. We're experiencing joy, and that's fun. That's where the gold and the juice is.
I love that. And going back to my previous question then on identity, some mums identify themselves as a mum and they put their child first. Everything's about the child, and they do it at the expense of their own life. And their fun is driving the kids and doing all the stuff. And they have sometimes lost themselves in that. Have you found, you're speaking from a place of you've changed that story for you, but you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
It's one of the common themes I see as a chiro. Oh, they put their kids so far forward that their back's out, and they it's at the expense of their health or their energy or their vitality. Is there a way that you would know as working with women for them to create the identity of not putting their kid first, but stepping into their fun and their authenticity, if we use that word again?
Yeah. So I do have some suggestions in and around that. I love driving my son's places. I'm a pretty busy woman working full time, doing workshops out there in the community, in the soccer community, and all that sort of stuff. But I actually really get a lot of joy driving my son and his friends different places. Some of the biggest laughs that I ever get is listening to teenage boys in the back of my car. And I have a 7-seater, so it's pretty full on, but it's really enjoyable. So it's like, how can you choose to do that as something that you are doing because you want to experience the children around you and experience that particular time of life, but you don't have to be the person. So sometimes it's you, sometimes it's not. That sort of thing. It's a choice, and it's balanced by the other side of that. Children-free activities.
Yeah.
There's got to be a balance.
Yeah.
If I was to make my children my whole identity, I can tell you right now, I wouldn't be who I am. And at some point, as we all know, children will leave the nest. So then who would I be? So I would rather find out who I am while they're there and they can get the best version of me. Because the mothers that do actually do that and are blind to the fact that they're doing it, they might not realize what they're actually doing is martyrdom. And the children end up resenting them because they feel suffocated, they feel smothered by their mother. If a mother has her own identity, the child feels more free to come towards her and experience a moment rather than feeling obliged to experience a moment with their mother.
And you and I have both seen when we've processed or helped support people that have felt that smothering.
Yes.
And you can see how that impacts their life. It's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge.
And they need a big breakthrough to release that. So we're talking about getting ahead of the game here for those people as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So the mother benefits and the child benefits because they're actually creating more freedom. The mum's not putting their stuff on them. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And sometimes it takes a few times for a mother to hear how to put themselves first. They can hear the message and they're like, but they can't work it out in their minds. Like, how am I supposed to put myself first when my child has XYZ needs? How does this going to work? They can't get to the how. If they get to the why of why they would want to do that, and if the why is because that is going to be the most beneficial thing for your child as well as yourself, you'll find the how. So.
Oh, look, I absolutely love that. That's such a beautiful, wise message for so many women out there. So, Laura, I believe you're now also doing the coach sort of program, becoming a coach or having the skills to be able to coach. And I know whether you had that skill or not, you've been just naturally helping and supporting women over the years. Can you share just a case of someone you might have specifically helped, like someone you've sat with, spoken with, worked on together with, to help them stand into that power, whether it's around creating identity, freedom, boundaries, whatever? I'd love to hear it.
Well, I probably have a couple of examples. And one of the ones that's actually coming to mind the most is actually, it's actually not a woman. So it's actually a man. I had a man come to me earlier this year and disclose something very heavy for him. And it was complex and chaotic, and he was choosing chaos. He was consciously going, I don't want to stop the choice that I'm making right now, but I don't know where I'm going to end up on the other side. So I sat with him and I held space with him. Months and months later, he's now at a place where he's finally settling back into himself. I didn't make him wrong. I didn't judge him. There was no, morality conversations on the decisions that he was making. And I'm getting to witness him now feeling actually comfortable with himself and his life is settling back down. And I know for a fact that I was the only person he would speak to in that moment. And he's surrounded by a lot of people, but he just didn't trust them to be able to hold it for him in the way that, we learn to as coaches. It's we don't make it about ourselves. We don't make the person wrong. We are holding space for them. So that they can step into their own power. And by gently doing that with him, he's been able to do that and reclaim that.
Yeah. So for that, whatever reason, that relationship has created a trust.
Yeah.
And what I see in you is that there are some people that might not understand this concept straight away, but as a woman, you have masculinity and femininity.
Yeah.
As a man, you have some masculinity and femininity. And you and I both know they can get distorted. And so some people would feel safe with a person if they're strong in either one or the other or both. How would you speak into the masculinity and femininity as a woman?
For myself? So I probably would say that I have ostensibly on the outside looking in, a lot of people judge me on masculinity and they see a masculine side and that they see my strength and they see that power. Oftentimes I can observe that the reason why they're judging that is because they don't actually have it in themselves. And so they would need to make my masculinity wrong. Oftentimes I've seen when there's those women, they can't see my femininity. And then all of a sudden I will do something and they will see the depth of my femininity and they'll be like, whoa, I didn't know you had that side as well. And I think it's balance within myself as well to find that masculine and feminine. I grew up with all boys, so I know how to rough and tumble and I like playing with those things. And, some women might find that to be too masculine for them. For me, it's right. So everyone has a different balance on the inside of what's right and wrong for them. Not wrong, but, what's right for them in masculinity and femininity. And sometimes if the masculinity is more pronounced, they might not see the femininity, but it's certainly there.
In terms of realms of power, it's a topic I haven't even covered before, but just in having the conversation, I just felt it was a real interesting one to open that topic up because there's a lot of people where they could be judged or they could be feeling that they're not standing in their power in one of those. Like, so they have no masculinity, so they're judged as not powerful, but there's so much power in femininity.
Yeah.
And as you said, I love the way you said it. The balance is individual for everyone. So if they can find what's right for them and use that in their power, and sure, they might be able to strengthen the other aspect if that's what's needed. But I think that's a beautiful thing for us to round out on today, because for me, that power, stepping into the power in either masculinity, femininity, boundaries, all of the topics you've covered is just brilliant. So if I could give you a final opportunity, Laura, to close out this podcast today, what would you share with our listeners as one other final bit of wisdom on how they could improve standing in their power?
Yeah. So for me, it comes down to the question of what's missing. If you feel like something is actually missing in your life, find yourself researching. There's something out there for you. And, you might come across 4 or 5 different avenues. One of them will speak to you more than the other. Myself, when I first was suggested to do the work that I'm doing, I said, that's not for me. And so I booked myself into a workshop that I thought was for me. I went and did that once. I've never gone back again. But I've stayed on this path. And this is what's worked for me. It spoke to me. And I can't encourage you enough, like listeners out there, if something's missing, step forward, take ownership, take responsibility for your personal power. And it always starts with that one step. For me, it started with stepping through the doorway of a drum that was just too loud and it scared the shit out of me.
I love it. Thank you so much. And Laura, what an amazing guest. I'm sure the listeners have got so much wisdom out of our conversation today. So thanks again for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And to the listeners, once again, thanks very much for tuning in. Have an awesome day. See ya.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Realms of Power. I have such gratitude for your time and energy and the vision to join us with turning your true aligned power on. To take your power up another level, you could share this episode with someone who you think would benefit, or make a comment online that would help us get this information out there. We'd really appreciate your love and support. Hope you have an awesome day. See ya.